Welcome to the smartest people in the room. We are so glad that you're here with us today, and by just showing up, you are already demonstrating your very own smarts. Today, I am so thrilled to present two longtime friends and absolute power players in their respective corners of the music business. Before we get started, let me take care of some business. First, to the audience, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat window. The reason we do these webinars is twofold. First, we want to showcase really smart people and the amazing work they do day to day in the music industry. But the second reason is a bit more nuanced. Most of you know that I am a music industry headhunter. I place music executives in roles throughout the industry. So by definition and function, I help people connect with companies. In this series, my goal is to help you make more connections, and I invite you to take full advantage of that opportunity. Specifically, I invite you to engage with the speakers and the other attendees in the chat of the Zoom. Please introduce yourselves, say hello to your friends, and make some new ones. And ask questions of our speakers. We will try to address as many of those as possible throughout the interview. And please make sure that your chat is set to address speakers and attendees, not just the attendees. I want to thank our program sponsors for their support. Without it, we couldn't do what we do. I want to thank First Horizon Bank, Bufkin Baker, Four Roses Bourbon, the Fairlane Hotel, the Tennessee Entertainment Commission, Lightning 100, Tennessee Brew Works, Moo TV, Jive Printing, Project Music, and Cushmaster's brand of CBD products. So let's get down to business. Today, as part of this series, I am broadcasting my portion from one of the great rooms in Nashville. There's no shortage of these fantastic businesses in this town that could benefit from additional love right now. So today I am at Anzi Blue, a very cool business owned and operated by my good friend and Who Knew alum, Marcy Allen. Anzi Blue is a CBD coffee shop located in Hillsborough Village. The food is great. The atmosphere is also amazing. In addition to dine-in, they also ship cheese and charcuterie boards and CBD nationwide. Please check them out online at anziblue.com. Let's get started with the program. In today's host seat, we welcome a great friend of mine and Who Knew alum, Joe Rapolla. Joe is chair of the Music and Theater Arts Department at Monmouth University, where he oversees all student performing arts programs and directs the music industry program and founded the university record label Blue Hawk Records. As department chair, Joe has formed innovative partnerships with organizations such as Asbury Park-based Lake House Recording Studios, the Grammy Museum, and the Bruce Springsteen Archive and Center for American Music. These partnerships further the goal of providing students with real-world experiences to complement Monmouth's comprehensive academic offerings and have contributed to Monmouth University's music business program being named one of Billboard magazine's top music business schools. A recognized music industry innovator, Joe built and led marketing divisions at both Universal Music and Warner Music Group, where he introduced pioneer relationship marketing programs and platforms. He also helped build direct-to-consumer marketing agency, Music Marketing Network, and the marketing organization for a video game startup with Def Jam Enterprises. Joe actively involves himself in charitable causes and organizations and events where his time and music can contribute, including a Holiday Express and Light of Day Foundation. Joe is also a performing songwriter and producer. He's released 3 studio albums, served as producer on multiple projects, collaborates with writers and artists in New York and Nashville, and continues to perform locally and abroad. And Joe is founding member of the music industry charity band, The Vowels, with his partner in crime and collaborator here today, Mr. John Esposito. Espo, as he's most commonly called, is one of Nashville's most accomplished and high-profile power players. As chairman and CEO of Warner Music Nashville, Espo has overseen the label quadrupling its market share since he began in 2009. Its artists have spent more than 94 weeks at #1, earning 67 chart-topping singles, multiple gold and platinum sales certifications, and Grammy, CMA, ACM, Billboard, and AMA awards ranging from New Artist to Entertainer of the Year. Espo now oversees a powerhouse roster that includes Blake Shelton, Kenny Chesney, Dan and Shay, Brett Eldridge, Cole Swindell, Ashley McBride, and artists who represent the genre's next generation like Ingrid Andress, Morgan Evans, and Gabby Barrett. A native of Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, Espo is a lifelong musician who attended Indiana University of Pennsylvania. In college, he spun records at his campus radio station and played in bands while earning a BA in journalism. Espo began his music career with retail chain The Wiz as COO of its music and movies division. He went on to executive roles at Polygram's Polymedia division and Island Def Jam Music Group. Espo's Warner career began with a stint as president and CEO of WEA, Warner Music Group's sales and marketing division, before being named to the post at Warner Music Nashville. Espo's been chairman of the board of the Country Music Association, governor of the Nashville chapter board of NARAS, and executive committee board member of the Country Radio Station Broadcasters Association. Other leadership roles span leadership music and the Nashville Convention and Visitors Bureau. Espo created Warner Music Nashville's environmental campaign, WMG Green, for which he was awarded the Natural Resources Defense Council's Forces for Nature honor, as well as Music Biz's Green Award for Environmental Responsibility. Additional recent achievements include the Presidential Award for Outstanding Executive Achievement from the Music Biz, Innovator of the Year Award from Innovation in Music Awards, and Honorary Doctorate of Music from Monmouth University. Please welcome these two amazing guests to the smartest people in the room. And guys, let me say one more thing. As we prepped for this last week, Espo and I realized we have two more things in common, and that is we both enjoy dark liquor. My favorite is Four Roses. He's a Macallan guy, but I won't hold it against him. And we also love the Pittsburgh Steelers. So every time the Steelers are mentioned today, I am going to take a swig of Four Roses. Go easy on me, gentlemen, but take it away, boys.
Thank you, Tom. That was lovely. That was a lovely introduction.
Yeah, no one gives an introduction like Tom. I think, Tom, you should have like a morning motivation call service and just get everybody going before they get out the door. So yeah, what about those Steelers this year, Espo?
All right, there we go. Unmuting. They were really good through 10 games and still squeaked in 11th game. I have friends from the Steelers who I saw their name pop up on the chat, and I will tell you all on the chat aspect. I'm not really good at multitasking as chats are going up to try to keep up with it. So I will read them later and appreciate all the people that are on here. But I'm sure that we're going to weave the word and the name Steelers in enough just so Tom can be buzzed by the time this is done. And, you know.
We need him to remain lucid so he can navigate all this for us.
All right.
So, hi, everyone. So greetings from Asbury Park or near Asbury Park. I'm on the beautiful campus of Monmouth University, which Tom described so elegantly before. And it's just, just great to be here. Tom, it's just a remarkable series that you put together, and you've had just so many great guests. I'm just really honored. And thanks everybody for joining. And especially grateful to have my friend and colleague through the years and mentor and bandmate for so many years, and still to this day, John Esposito, for doing this. Espo, you join us from the lovely, your lovely island home in Nantucket.
Yes, indeed. Nantucket red, that's what they call that color on that door. I've been up here since June.
Nice.
I used to work remotely from here for 2 months a year. I had the blessing of being able to do that for most of 20 years. Gave me a lot of practice for what will end up being probably about 18 months of working remotely.
Yeah, that's crazy. Are you in Far Niente?
That's the name of our house, which translates in Italian to happily doing nothing. And that's what I named my house when I bought it 20 years ago
CC.
up here.
So as you heard, Espo's got a really big gig. You know, he's running one of the biggest and best labels in Nashville, and he's got such a long list of amazing artists that he's helped break and shape their careers, and Blake Shelton and Dan and Shay and Kenny Chesney and more recently Ashley McBride and Devin Dawson and Gabby Barrett, who I think hails from the market of Pittsburgh, home of the Steelers.
Yes.
Yeah.
There'll be a story later about Gabby and how a certain person who was in the Steelers organization helped me in acquiring her. But I'll save that. It's inevitable. I won't be able to not tell the story.
No, cool.
And if I might, my press department sends a bio over, and I'm always intrigued when I get introduced the things that get highlighted. But for the record, I started effectively my music business career running record stores in Washington in the late 70s called Harmony Hut. I then took a circuitous route through being a buyer at Macy's and then running Mitsubishi Electronics sales operation for a few years before I got to the Wiz as the head of the music division. And that opened up all the doors that have given me 3 decades officially in the major music majors. And, so I will always thank the Wiz for giving me the exposure that gave me that opportunity. That's where I met Joe.
That's where we met. That's right. Like 25 more, I think, years ago. It might have been around 1994.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember the date exactly, but I remember vividly. I have a vivid memory of the meeting. I was at Music Marketing Network. It was the agency that I helped build with Paul Chachko and John Mazzacco, and Bob Scoro was there, and Marcus Petersdale, and so many others. And I say D2C, but that wasn't even like an acronym in those days. We were just doing really hit data-driven marketing campaigns and research. But I was making a sales call to Nobody Beats the Wiz, and I walked into your office, and before too long, I noticed the guitar in the corner, and I think that was the end of the sales call. I said, you play, I play, and I think we just, I think we might have just played a couple of Eagles songs or Tom Petty songs after that, and that was just a really great beginning of a really special friendship and years of great business together.
I didn't force Glory Days down your throat that day. I'm pretty usual. My first thing to pick up and play is a Springsteen song.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there was a Bruce song there. Yep. I don't think a meeting has begun or ended since then between us without one of us picking up the guitar.
That's right.
But yeah, and I want to hear. We're gonna have you fill in all the gaps of your story for sure. And kind of we'll just lace into that a little bit of how we work together. After Music Marketing Network was acquired, you and Kurt Eddy and Jim Caparo invited me to come to Polygram, PGD actually.
Yeah.
Right, which became Universal, which became Vivendi Universal, and we had a pretty good run there. But I think we broke a lot of ground doing some pretty cool things. Then you went. Then Edgar bought Warner out from Time Warner, brought Leor over, who brought you over to run WIA, and you killed it there.
Well, I'll do a little bit of modification. So at Polygram, we get acquired by Universal at the end of 1998, and I'm asked to become the general manager of what became Island Def Jam. Mercury Records, Island Records, and Def Jam Records put together. That's when I started working for Leor Cohen as my boss, and Jim Caparo was running the label. And after, I guess, almost 4 years, Roger Ames, who had left Polygram, was now the chairman of Warner Music Group, and he asked me to come over and be the president of WIA. So I officially worked at I was joking with my boss, Max Masada, today. I worked for AOL Time Warner. We got bought by Edgar Bronfman and became a private company, bragged about how much a private company is more nimble and all that. 2 years later, Edgar turns it into a public offering. And so we're a public company. And then a few years later, Len Blavatnik and Access Industries buys us. So now we're a private company again. And as many of you probably know, Warner did an IPO last year, and now we're a public company again. So I know how to dance in both of those dance floors. And just Joe, not to take you off your role of my thing, but I joined Warner and became the president of We in 2002. And in 2009, Edgar and Leor Cohen and Edgar Bronfman asked me if I wanted to move to Nashville and run their country record label. And I said, I love Nashville. I'll do it in a heartbeat. And that's where I've been for going on my 12th year. I absolutely love Nashville and have had just a blast in this hillbilly land, as I like to facetiously say.
Born again hillbilly, I think you say.
I'm a born again hillbilly.
I'm glad you brought up the Warner going public thing, because I wonder if my options are still good from 2004. I don't know.
No, I can answer that.
It's typical. As you said, you killed it at WEA. Leor and Edgar asked you to come down to Warner, and I want to hear more about that. I'm sure everybody does. But as Tom mentioned, you're a honorary doctorate recipient here at Monmouth University.
Thank you very much, Joseph.
Yeah. So, Dr. Esposito, maybe take us back and fill in some of those early gaps if you want. How does a kid from Punxsutawney, PA, and who doesn't love saying Punxsutawney, who graduates from Indiana University of Pennsylvania, university so great they have two states in their name, start that journey and make all those leaps?
I tell you what, out of the blue, I wear Punxsutawney on my sleeve. Anybody who really knows me knows that they're likely to be hearing about the Steelers, Springsteen, and Punxsutawney. And then there'll be other stuff like wine and Macallan and many other things. But, I was born in a town of about 5,200 people and spent my first 11 years in Punxsutawney. And out of the blue the other day, the guy who puts on the groundhog thing that happens next Tuesday, gets my email from my cousin and reaches out to me to see if I can get any artists to perform for their virtual Groundhog Day festivities. And so apparently there's going to be a live on YouTube thing going on. Maybe I'll find the link. He sent me the name and I'll put it on the chat room. But I got Brett Eldridge to get on and make a little fun of me and then sing the national anthem. And I have a couple of other things up my sleeve. But, it's always fun to be small town boy, does, pretty well. I'm proud of the journey. And the journey started with me singing in the choir in Catholic school, starting in first grade. I couldn't get enough singing. When I figured out I could sing harmony, I knew it gave me an advantage as well, because everybody wants to hear harmonies. Of course, on February 4th of 1964, the world changed for just about everybody. When 85% of the television sets were tuned into Ed Sullivan, like seeing that over your shoulder. And through the years, I learned how to play drums. I learned how to play guitar. I studied percussion. In fact, my first year at university, I was a music major. And then my sort of rebellious nature was, I didn't want to stand in a small room studying snare drum parts for hours on end so I could go play for the teacher and prove that I could read these notes, with alacrity. I just wanted to be Max Weinberg. I thought, screw it, man. I just want to, be a rock and roller. So I ended up switching my degree to what I did get a degree in, which was journalism. And while in college, and none of this told me I was going to run a record label, but I played in 2 different bands. I wrote stories, the record reviews for our college newspaper. As Tom said, I was a DJ on the local radio station. I would book the concerts for the university. And, and I had a lot of fun booking whoever I loved, like Hall & Oates before they were big and Billy Joel before he was big. And, in both cases, the manager called me up because they got big hit singles and said, we're not going to play your show because we can now make 5 times the amount. And I'm a 20-year-old having to talk to Tommy Mottola and say, but you have a contract, sir. And guess what? Because he was managing Hall & Oates, they showed up. So I'm doing all of these things. I probably left something out. And I leave to get a job in journalism. And I see a help wanted, and I wanted to be Woodward or Bernstein. I wanted to be an investigative journalist. This was the era of Watergate. And I go to DC and I see a help wanted sign for a record store. And I was running out of money. So I took a job barely above minimum wage to be a clerk in the record store in order to just pay the bills so I could, figure out when I was going to get that journalism job. And I found out I was really good at running a business. And of course, I love getting free concert tickets and I love getting free promo albums, and it spoke to me. The whole thing through going to what was called Bamberger's, a division of Macy's, that a mutual friend of Joe's and mine is on here. I saw he's on the chat, was unplanned. I thought, well, they're going to double my salary and I could go, see, maybe this is what's supposed to happen in life. And then Mitsubishi comes in 4 years later and offers me what's tripling my salary so I could run their sales operation for these. And I'm thinking, well, I guess this is how life goes, making money. And then one day I was bored shitless because I could be done with my job at Mitsubishi by 3 PM. And I am the epitome of whatever that expression is. Idle hands are the devil's workshop. I need to be busy or I'm not good to myself. And so I told my now ex-wife, I got to go get a job in the music business. And I called the people at the Wiz because they were my biggest Mitsubishi customer. And they asked me to come run their record division. I will shut up eventually, Joe, but I'm filling in some gaps here. Okay. And I went to run their music division. And within 2 years, I had Sony, EMI, and Polygram talking to me. And I just happened to love the guy at Polygram, John Madison. And I said, okay, I'm going there and let's see what happens. But boy, once I got my foot in the door, and that was the end of 1994, there was no turning back. I thought, I have made it into a music major. Now I'm just going to out hustle everybody. And I don't know what job I'm going to get, but I'm going to get a bigger and bigger job. And, and I'd say this is probably the key driver. I'm so passionate about music. It's so obvious, Joe and I have this band that we just love. We raised a lot of money for charity with the band. Even had a reunion just before the pandemic hit in New York, right? But all I wanted, which ultimately led to me becoming a record label head, was to be close to the artist because I thought I could speak their language. And if a person had business acumen and could then engage with artists in a fashion that they knew I wasn't a spreadsheet guy, I may know how to read a spreadsheet, but I do that without them ever seeing it. Just, my aspiration was to be part of discovering a Dan and Shay when they're 2 penniless kids come into play in my office. And I'm looking at my head of A&R going, we're signing them now, right? And, you hope to God you're right most of the time. And then, 8 years later, 7 billion streams later, just had a #1 record 2 weeks ago. You feel like, well, maybe I'm qualified to do this business,
Yeah, I think you demonstrated that for sure. And that's just remarkable, right? I mean, listen to that journey, listen to the ping ponging that goes off and the learning and re-navigating that goes on. It's not like you go to Catholic school and graduate from IUP, become a fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then and then all of a sudden you say to yourself, well, I'm going to go straight down this lane to become the chairman and CEO of one of the biggest and best music labels in Nashville. It takes kind of all that, taking the blinders off all along the way, seeing all the possibilities, as you said, out hustling everybody. And there's a lot other traits and talents that go along with that were contributed to all of that. I know. So
Can I comment on that though, just if I could, Joe?
yeah.
You know, two comments. One is I go and speak before students quite often. I love to do it, you know, in Berkeley School of Music and certainly Belmont University and Middle Tennessee State University that have these music programs. Pittsburgh's now got a great program up there with Point Park. They wear the same colors as the Steelers. And so, you know, I've done them and some others, and everybody, you know, wants to know how you get to this kind of job. How do I get to run a record label? You know, and this answer is the same with everybody. Just get your foot in the door and show everybody your passion and out hustle everybody. You don't have to hurt anybody along the way. You just have to have people know that you're a heavy lifter and that you'll get your job done. And then you're saying, what else can I do? You know, and thank God for my mother who lived to be almost 95 years old and was sturdy until the day she left. She had energy like nobody's business. And I'm the Energizer Bunny, you know. That's point one. And point two is this. I wasn't daunted to move to Nashville to run a record label. I had worked in a record label. I'd worked in music companies for a lot of years. But if you look on paper, the distribution head going to run a country record label when he couldn't name 10 artists on the chart didn't sound like the resume that qualified me. Thank God Leor and Edgar had this belief in me. But I knew that if I was to win down there, and I was sent down there to fix the label, let's be clear, the label had had a good number of years of not doing well. I was going to have to become a student, not just of country music, but of the town of Nashville, because it's its own unique animal. And with that, I joined the CMA board, the ACM board, the Mayor's Music Council. I visited 85 radio stations my first year, country radio stations. I just did all these things saying, they're going to have to know I mean business. And I hope to God I soak in enough about the music along the way to, you know, make it add up, because you can't change something overnight. And, you know, I always like to have a sort of mission statement. I mean, seriously, a mission statement. And my mission statement was, because I had to fire the entire roster except for one guy named Blake Shelton. And Blake wasn't doing well, but I knew that guy's talent was unbelievable. And along with my head of A&R, who happened to be Blake's producer, I said, listen, we're going to tell the whole building that we're going to build this building around Blake Shelton. We're going to start getting him hits, right? Because they got to believe in something, because they were having more misses on every artist than, you know, than you would ever want to count. And it was that got Blake out of obscurity. You know, we strung 17 #1 records together in a row, made history at 11 because no one had beat 11 in a row. 28 #1 records now, you know, but we had to give people a reason to believe they could be something. You can be a record label. Let's show the world. And look how, you know, you start doing stuff like that instead of being the last stop on the tour of everybody trying to get a record deal. We were there at the outset we were getting a first look for any artist. I'm insanely proud that vision paid off, you know, that had it not, I would have made up another one and gone with it. But, you know, you got to show people in this music business passion, because that's what they want. That's what they need. The artists need to believe you'll be so relentless on their behalf that even scares them.
Well, Yeah, certainly for all that, because that's been demonstrated. I was gonna ask you why Leor and Edgar thought they needed someone down in Nashville to be that fixer, and why that and why they thought that it was you. But I think you've addressed all of that. Um, and speaking of all the great students you speak with, I see shout out to all of our the students that are online right now from all different universities, but certainly got a nice showing from the Monmouth University student body. A lot of music industry students here, graduates and current students. So shout out there to everybody for being here. So what's it like running a record label during a pandemic?
Oh boy, there, I'll tell you what. I remember we got into the office. It was either Monday or Tuesday of that week in March, and found out, Nashville. Boy, talk about a hell of a year. We had the tornado, and it was pretty destructive. Not that any tornado is not destructive, but this one happened to swing right through East Nashville and just ripped up some of the most beautiful places. I think total of 4 people died in the tornado that, had it come during the course of the day, would have killed hundreds and hundreds, if not more. We were lucky that it came so late at night that most people were home in bed. But there were all these efforts, including all of the people who work for me, going over to help try to piece East Nashville together. And a telethon took place to help raise money. CMT put on this telethon. And then the Coconut Wireless people started calling and saying, "Did you hear that a manager has COVID who was at the telethon?" And oh my God, everybody, I don't even think contact tracing was in the vernacular, but I can assure you that everybody that was at that building was anxious. And so I get my senior team together and say, "Listen, some of you were down there. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to tell the crew that we're going to close the building down for a deep cleaning on Thursday and Friday. And everybody will be back in the office next Tuesday." And I believe that the day we closed was about the 13th of March. It was the 12th or 13th. We haven't been back since. Now, that story is similar to almost anybody's story in this time. And then it became imperative that I would get I got a small group. I oversee a label that has about 77 people working for it. I had a small group of about 5 people plus our head of HR, trying to figure out all the best next steps, which included, as the days went on and it became more obvious that we were not going back in the building, how do we get people equipment so they can do their job? You can't, nobody's even allowed to go back in our building. So we were trying to figure out the safest way to get them gear. So much of our music business is the digital world, between the creation of the content and then the marketing of it through digital. And, these people were used to coming into some pretty fine gear in the office. We had to get it into their homes. We had to make out new protocols and processes. And, I will say that this core group of about 5 or 6 people then got expanded to my senior team, which is 11 people total. These are the department heads who help me run this label on a day-to-day basis. And what are we not paying attention to? So we had meetings that were going daily that became like every other day, that then became we're going to get everybody at the label together on a town hall every single Friday, update them with what we do know, check in with them, and then constantly in the interim check in on people, because I think the fatigue of Zooms and everything, I think we're about at the point where we're all going to lose our freaking minds, by the way. But our job was to keep them as chipper as we could. That's silly way of putting it, but to keep people as light on their feet. And the one thing I'm very proud of our label for doing is I watched our competitors slow their release schedule down because everybody's worried that will anybody want to buy any music, consume any music, stream any music? And I said, you know, if nothing else, not because I'm smart, because me and my senior team came, you know, to the conclusion, we got to show people we're in business and feed the music. So we released during the first 6 months of this more songs to radio, more songs to streaming, and more full-length albums, you know, you know, and I'm sure I have competitors on here going, but wait a minute, no, we kept the stats. And then everybody decided, well, we can't sit on our hands, we got to get going. And so, you know, I think people being stuck in their homes certainly helped the business of Netflix, and it helped, you know, you read the stories, it helped particularly country music in the world of streaming, you know, and not to be too much in the weeds on it, but, you know, country music lagged behind the adoption of iTunes. It lagged behind the adoption of streaming. It's just kind of the nature of our core audience, I guess, but they eventually catch up. This accelerated the catch up. You know, now we have country artists, not just in our label, but competitors' labels that are streaming, you know, at levels that pop artists stream at. And, you know, from our projecting, we probably got 2 years ahead of the time it would have taken us to get there.
Yeah, and that's something I think COVID accelerated a lot of things, you know, across business and society, and certainly for our business and the genre, as you pointed out. You know, I mean, a label, you know, there's, you know, so much vibe and culture that's required to run a music company or operate the operations of a music company. And so, you know, the fact that you can keep all that going in this remote environment is quite remarkable, and it says a lot about your team, which I know a few people there, of course, but you mentioned your head of A&R a while ago. I think everybody knows that to be the great Scott Hendricks, who I think has been called the most successful country producer of the last quarter century. So not too bad to have those kind of players on your team, you know, unlike you know, players on some football teams that go 10-0 and then lose the next 4 games, like the Pittsburgh Steelers.
11-0, excuse me, let's correct
what
that.
was I thinking, right?
Okay.
And
yes.
but Scott, you know, I heard Scott say that Espo is hands down the best leader that he's ever had around. And now I didn't need Scott to say that. I mean, because we've known each other for a quarter century, and I've been lucky enough to work with you and directly for many years. And everybody always says we're a team, we're family. But one of the ways Scott put it, I found very interesting. He said that you know, everybody has to put their egos aside and put their insecurities aside. There's no place for insecurities on Espo's team. Egos, I get, but you know, there's no place for insecurities on Espo's team. What does Scott mean by that, and why do you think that's important?
I'll give you my best conjecture on it, but then I have to tell you a funny Scott Hendricks story. I'm the culmination or accumulation of my best mentors' quips that stick with me through the years, a handful of which I use on a regular basis. And one of them is, you're either in the boat or you're not, right? And if you're in the boat, if you're committed to the same cause that we are, if you're not second guessing decisions after they're made in a room that you were in and kept your mouth shut, because believe me, through the years, I've met many of those sissies who won't say it in the room, say everybody agrees, and then goes and shut their office door and says, can you believe we're doing that?
Mhm.
I'm really good at finding those people and getting them to go work for a competitor,
Mhm.
right? And I told people, you'll never have to watch your back if we just all march in the same pattern together. Because either I'll have a vision that was right or it was wrong. And if it's wrong, it'll be obvious and I won't be running the record label. But it's tough enough to go out and get the gatekeepers to play your songs on radio and put them on playlists. We have to be insanely unified, but you will never get chastised for a contrarian opinion. As long as once we come to a conclusion, it's all hands in the middle. And, Scott Hendricks, Chris Lacey, and Kristen Williams are 3 people out of 76 people who were at the label on the day I took the label over. Guess what happened to the rest of them? They didn't subscribe to that. Now, I'm not Attila the Hun. I give everybody their opportunity, but eventually you have to all be in the boat and be together. And I would then go on to brag, we have less turnover than I think any division in the Warner Music Group, and Warner Music Group's turnover is very, very, very low. And I would say that the stability of our label, we haven't had anybody leave our label in years, right? Because once you finally get the team in place, they all know how lucky they are. They all know how lucky to watch everybody that's alongside of them fight at the same level of enthusiasm and dedication and chops as them. And then everybody just wants to kind of protect if this person needs help, I'm gonna help them because this is too damn good. And that's self-aggrandizing, but I'll tell you what, I know it's true. People are dying to work for this label because it's a dedicated group of passionate music people who there's not a wanker in the bunch, and I'm very proud of that. Now here's the Scott Hendricks story. Scott was the president of Capitol. He became the president of Virgin, Nashville. The day I was announced, he didn't know me. I didn't know him. I knew his resume, but that's all. I came into his office and Scott says, I want you to know 2 things, with his Oklahoma accent, which I try to duplicate poorly. One is I ran a record label and I never want to do it again. I just want to make music. That's all I want. And the other thing he said, and it's so Scott, he so wears his heart on his sleeve. He goes, and I got to tell you something. Something happened with you that I've never had happen before. When I heard you were going to be the head of the label, I called a bunch of people to see what they knew about you. And everybody said the same thing. That never happens.
And what was that? What was that thing?
Well, I don't know. One of the things I think I corrected Scott, and I didn't have to correct Scott on many things, is he would use this expression. A lot of people in Nashville use it. I love him, but, and then they tell you what, and I said after about the 3rd time, you either love somebody or you don't. Don't say I love them, but. You could say this person has a lot of good attributes, but let me tell you what pisses me off, or whatever way you want to say it. But love is saved for love, and Scott laughs about it. I would, just for those who are listening to this, Scott is now my senior advisor and in-house producer. And with Scott's not just blessing, but joy, we promoted Chris Lacey to be our head of A&R. So Scott plays a role in that we don't make people go to Scott, although everybody loves it. If he'll produce the record, it's an option. But he was spending so much time in the studio, and I needed somebody who would be day to day in there, managing the insane air traffic control. And so we made the decision, Scott and I together, that Chris, who'd been with us before I got there, she's one of the names I mentioned, is one of the three who are still at the label. She's just amazing. And Scott said, this is perfect. We'll let her take that mantle and I'll be there for advice and counsel, but I'll have my hands full. So he's contractually signed to me forever. And thank God. And Chris is just killing it at the label as the head of A&R.
Well, you're in good hands there no matter what, because Chris Lacey, my leadership music class of 2016, best class ever, sister, you can't go wrong with any of that formula.
That's right.
So I'm not surprised Scott heard all those wonderful things. I presume they were all wonderful when he made those calls, when he called around. But I think a lot of people have seen that and continue to see that. You've been recognized with so many great distinctions and recognitions. Recently, I think you were named the you got an international award from the CMA, which honors executives who support the growth of and promotion of country music internationally, and that's pretty remarkable. And hopefully you come back for the rest of this question. But
no, this is I don't have much here in Nantucket because I don't need to clutter this house up. But when I won the Joe Walker Meter International Award here, I said, ship it up to me. And it's the only thing on my shelf related to the music business. And it sits right beside my candle.
Well, that's a cool looking award. It almost looks like a Super Bowl trophy that the Steelers had a chance at pursuing this year, along with the New York Giants, who, with like a 4-15 record, were almost in first place in the NFC. And we're competitive in a different, on a different scale. But so you win that great award for promoting, the growth of country music internationally. How important is international to the genre? Is it different than any other genre or music in general?
I spent the first our company, back when we could have gatherings, would have the heads of all the territories and the heads of the U.S. record labels get together for a confab once a year. And as one of the things over the 3 days that occurred, everybody got a slot to do a presentation of their music. Now, mind you, Atlantic Records had an hour, Warner UK had an hour, Nashville had 15 minutes. And that's not a shot at the company, country music did not travel well for most of the years it has existed. The exceptions would be Alan Jackson had success, and Dolly Parton had success, and Kenny Rogers had success. But they were the anomalies over there. And so I would get up and do my presentation, and these people are great. And, we're like brothers and sisters, but nobody was committing to anything in terms of, okay, yeah, I'll do something. Even with Dan and Shay early days, they could get it. They even, I would hear occasionally for somebody like Dan and Shay and other artists on the roster, is that country? It sounds pretty pop, right? But in the day when their job was to figure out what their priorities were, and it was still a physical business time, fighting to get somebody like Dan and Shay into a record store in London was a tough putt. And then this thing called Apple iTunes started getting people to have no borders. And then people were telling me, Hunter Hayes is in the top 10 of all Apple, his song Wanted, downloads for the year. And they had to sort of pay attention, right? And then streaming came on with a vengeance. And then all of a sudden, our record labels were calling us to say, I think there's something there. And it turned to the day, and mind you, this is like the last 3 years, where they would fight we have 3 record labels in London, fight to get them on the label or name the artist. So I felt very much that I wanted us to be at the forefront of the expansion, which requires not just that the music gets traction, and thank you, streaming services, for helping profoundly in that regard. But it takes the artist in realizing, I'm probably going to have to do some extra work to build an audience over there, because I can go play, a club here and get paid handsomely, or I'm going to go play a small club there and probably lose a little money. But the idea is I have to go back again 8 months later, and I'll play a bigger hall, and eventually it will be real money, real fans. And, I would say Dan and Shay, I've used this example. They sold out Shepherd's Bush. I think that's probably a 2,500-ish seat place. They made money, not the same money they'd make from the Madison Square Garden show. They sold out in 20 minutes, but they made money. But most importantly, they had lines out the door blocks long to try to get in. And so all of a sudden we knew we had something, and I had hired a consultant based in London to help us with our effort. Put a team together. None of my competitors had a dedicated full-time 100% international team. I said, listen, if we're going to do this, we're going to put a stake in the ground. So won the award was probably recognition of that. And thankfully our business has in 4 years, 7 times growth, which is astonishing because it's a real number on our P&L now. But I would say that all of Nashville's seizing the opportunity now, which can only be great for the genre, right? And we always loved that we would have some revenue internationally, but it was 80% Canada and 20% of the rest of the world. Now Canada is probably 25% of our business, and it's growth. Their business is growing, but now we've got Australia, we've got the Netherlands, we've got Germany, we got the UK. Brett Eldridge selling out places in Denmark and in Glasgow. It's pretty fun to watch this thing develop.
Yeah, well, it's wonderful when the world opens up like that and you find this whole other base of opportunity. And I don't know. You come from rock and folk and pop and singer-songwriter, and I know you always loved country, and being able to bring that to the rest of the world, I just think it's so important. Because I was just thinking on the way over here today that I think I caught a Blake Shelton song. I think it was "I'll Name the Dogs," and I think country music just reminds everybody kind of a lot of times what's important.
Yeah.
They have a great way of it has a great way of doing that. So if we can get that out to the whole world, wonderful. Certainly shows the commitment you have, the label has, the genre has, and so I'm sure all that recognition is well deserved. Got a question in here in the chat. I want to ask, you named Dan and Shay and how great they're doing internationally and all the artists, but and all the great signings you had. And are there any artists you regret not signing?
I think that it's impossible not to reflect on the 2 or 3 in this decade I've been down there that we were in the battle to sign, and for whatever reason, in the early days, it was because we didn't have a story to tell. So for instance, we were one of the contenders for Florida Georgia Line, but Florida Georgia Line needed proof of concept. And at the time, Big Machine, and they still do, had a promotion team that was proof of concept, and I was just rebuilding a team, so it was too big of a risk for him to do it. And there's a lot the guys are good buddies of mine, Tyler and BK. In fact, they helped me sign an artist during COVID that they had been grooming, who I think is going to take the world by storm. His name is Red Farron. Blake Red Farron's his full name, but he goes by Red Farron, and he's a force of nature. But I wish we had had more game then, so I could have had that opportunity, and there might be a couple of others along the way. There's one who I won't name, but we overthought it. We thought this person was too pop, and we guessed it wrong, and he went on to selling a shit ton of records. Conversely, and this is what Chris Lacey's and her team's role is. One of the things I love, like this Red Farron guy, relationships get us to be the first phone call about this kind of artist. And because they know our radio team now, our radio promotion team is as good as anybody's in Nashville, better, I might say, but at least as good as anybody's. But the A&R team is so good that we get the phone call, and the phone call is, we won't tell anybody about this person if you want them. Then it's just, let's figure out how to get a deal. And that's pretty joyful to be able to get to that point. And we've had a number of those, and it's, I dare say a testament to proof of concept. I had to be a preacher for the first 3 years of saying, we're going to get there. And then we started getting there,
The losses just make the wins feel that much better.
It's just like when Chuck Noll came to take over the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I was going to mention the Pittsburgh Steelers, in that regard.
There they had 35 years of losing, and then somebody came in and had a vision. And I ain't no Chuck Noll, but by the way,
You mentioned radio in that last comment a couple of times, and so I mean, certainly the role of terrestrial radio is changed over the years. How important and how does the terrestrial radio fit in to the equation with streams and other channels these days?
Radio remains vitally important. It's a new day, however, to have the world of streaming added to our armada, and I dare say non-terrestrial radio in the name of Sirius XM, because they can be risk takers without the pressure that terrestrial radio tends to feel, because consolidation, they got a lot of pressure on themselves, right? But when you get a song into the top 20 at terrestrial radio, combined with, if you already have a streaming story, a consumption story as the vernacular has become, that's when you tend to be able to go through the roof. But it's nice because you take an artist like Gabby Barrett, and Gabby was getting spun on Sirius XM long before she had a record deal, and she was getting playlisted by the streaming services. By the time we got her signed a very, very competitive deal, the streams were such that it gave us a data point, a pretty massive data point with radio about, you got to hop in this boat. Hell, we're getting 5 million streams a week, and this is not even getting played by your station. That's better than pretty much every song in the top 10 of the chart, So it's a push-pull, but, we still have a significant portion of our staff dedicated to radio. We do not long for their demise. It's a pretty big battle to get played, because they're getting more research dependent. And one of the funny things about research is if you don't play it, you can't get research. And so you're in this, it's not researching. No shit, you're not fucking playing it, right? Kind of conversations. But, somehow through all the battles that we all have, we get them onto that chart, and then there's massive consumption, so I count on them for years and years.
I remember when you first got to town, you did something that most label heads don't do. You went on the radio promotion tours, right? The radio promotion meetings. And I'm sure there was a lot of talk about, label heads don't do that, but I'm sure radio really appreciated somebody in your position coming to visit them and talk to them about your music. And that paid a lot of dividends. I'm just wondering, how did you know something like that was what you needed to do?
Uh, I would say that Scott Borchetta, who is the head of Big Machine, was the epitome of getting promo done, because he had friends through radio. Now, he came from the world of radio, country radio promotion, so he had years and years ahead of me of interaction with them. But I heard a story about my predecessor and an artist of ours betting him he couldn't name 5 country radio stations. And I don't know, I've heard 2 or 3 versions of the story. By the way, there are 2,500 country radio stations, but there are 150 that are part of what they call the chart reporting stations. And I thought, if he couldn't name 5, I'm going to be the opposite of that. I'm going to show him how serious we are. And so there I said to my head of promotion, I need to meet as many of them as I can. And we narrowed it down to 85 that were in the biggest markets that I could logically get to, and over the course of about 7 months I did. And the feedback was instant, like, holy crap, like you're saying, this guy must mean business,
Mm-hmm.
And I've made some incredibly dear friends through the years in this regard, and when it comes time for what we call a #1 push, because we're competing with some other song to get to the top of the chart, it's fun to be able to call them up or text them and say, hey, I don't bug you often, but, help us, please. And, it's all part of the crazy ecosystem.
Staying on radio, I think it's been pretty widely observed that women aren't really getting their fair shake on country radio. Are you seeing any progress there?
Well, we had a little bit of history made last year with, boy, I'll tell you what, the pandemic, the years blend together. It might have been the end of 2019, or it could have been at the beginning of 2020, forgive me. But we got #1 singles for Ingrid Andress, her first single released to radio, and an artist you all should pay attention to, as well as for Gabby Barrett. And it was the first time 2 new females had their first single go #1 in over 20 years. I believe that our modus operandi of just saying it's not about women, and I had to say this in so many interviews, oh, is country radio getting easier? That's why you've got these. No, the songs are fucking great and they're geniuses, okay? And, they don't make it any easier. We had to fight for months to get Gabby charted, despite all those streams I'm telling you about. But once it happened, the best song wins, and the best artist. And so I feel like, now you can look on the chart. You could argue we got so much further to go, but I just approach it that we're lucky to have those 2 that I mentioned and Ashley McBride. And now we have a fantastic new artist named Robin Ottolini who we're releasing to radio soon, that we're not afraid, we're undaunted that it's females, and there may only be 3 songs on the chart that are females, or 4 out of 50 at any given point. As long as they're all ours, or most of them are ours, that's the fight I'm fighting, not to try to convince, there's some people who want to legislate how much you have to play.
Yep.
And I don't think that works.
Yeah, that's great, and much more organic, and gives everybody the fair shake they deserve.
That's right. And Ingrid Andress has 3 Grammy nominations, God bless her.
God bless.
Including Best New Artist out of all genres, right? So, geniuses with amazing chops prevail.
Hey, everyone, real fast. We're gonna obviously run a little over. I'm sure Tom would invite you to please just hang with us and stay a little bit. If I can keep my friend online a little bit more, I got a little more ground I'd love to cover, and so hang with us. And then if we get the opportunity to get to some questions, that'd be great too.
And I probably have 10 to 15 minutes, so I can't multitask, though I see there are questions.
Mhm.
So if you want to get to questions, why don't you go for 5 minutes, and then let's see if anybody wants to raise their hand for any thing. Is that cool?
That's cool. But I can sometimes multitask, but this has been flying through the screen too fast. So Tom, I'm going to ask you to traffic control there a little bit and let us know, or send me a note of anything that's come in that our great guests have asked us to maybe address.
I've got a couple here. Let me jump in. This one comes from Roy D'Souza. Espo, when you first heard I Hope by Gabby Barrett, did you know right away it could be a hit? And if so, what was it about that song that made you feel that way?
I will happily acknowledge that as much of a music person as I am, my trust is in my A&R department. And when they came down with the excitement they felt about Gabby and that song and said, we have to take a meeting with her, you could imagine these A&R people sifting through about 2,500 submissions a year to become an artist at the label. And they probably audition in the old pre-pandemic days in their office, now via Zoom sort of operations, about 150, and they bring about 30 to me, and we sign about 4, so it's a hell of a filter. So when I get their enthusiasm that this one, come on, this is, this is one you really need to pay attention to, I'm in. I, of course, thought the song was fantastic. I thought the ironic twist of, the last line in the chorus was just deliciously nasty, and when she came into the office, I of course found out she's from Pittsburgh before she came in. But when she came in, she was 18 years old, and she played about 7 songs for us that all sounded like hits. And I thought, if this girl's writing songs at this age, I Hope is just the beginning of a long, fruitful career, right? And there was the little story I teased you with earlier, so that I can weave the Steelers in one more time. One of my dearest friends on the planet Earth is the former coach of the Steelers, Bill Cowher, who does an amazing job on the best morning team, or the noon team, Eastern time, CBS NFL Today, right? And I really, we were trying. Gabby was such a competitive fight to get her. And she had an affinity for me because I'm from Pittsburgh. But her dad, who I had not even met, is a diehard Steelers fan. So one of the people on my team said to me, you're going to have to replenish that. How about if you get your buddy Bill Cowher to call her dad? I call up Bill and he says, I'd love to. Bill calls up Gabby's dad. He sees a 412 because Bill kept the 412 area code mobile number on his, he doesn't, hello? Hey, Blaze, it's Bill Cowher, Coach Cowher. It was game over. Game over, 18-year-old's dad, it became very emotional at that point.
I bet we got to get Coach involved in more of our activities. We were fortunate enough to have his very talented wife, Queen V, join us on the last.
She said it with the vowels. That's right. She killed it.
we're not going to get. Unfortunately, we could talk more about the valves. We're not going to get to that. So next time, and the great record.
I'll stay on for a few more minutes. I'm supposed to be out of here at 3:30 Eastern time. So
Tom will invite us again, I'm sure.
Yeah, here's one more question, Joe, that I'd like to ask. This one
Mm-hmm.
comes from Neil Doherty, and I'm going to paraphrase, but Espo, the gist of it is,
I know Neil. Shout out Neil.
Where does TikTok fit in with you guys these days? And I, I'll even paraphrase further. How deliberate are you and your A&R team being in leveraging TikTok?
I will tell you that TikTok, not from an A&R standpoint, has become an incredibly important tool in our bag of digital marketing, right? Because you can get some instant results that can help guide you. And, in general, the world of digital, particularly streaming, YouTube, and things like TikTok, not that there's anything else like TikTok, but, Instagram, whatever. You find out if you got something that reacts very quickly where, just go back 7-8 years. The only thing besides radio playing a song that gave you any indication something was good was iTunes. Now we have lots of tea leaves we can read that say, oh man, we picked the right single, or maybe we didn't pick the right single. We're proud purveyors of TikTok. I think that in the world of A&R, my A&R team, God bless them, the inundation with somebody who gets connections on TikTok and suddenly becomes number one on iTunes, is making it a really interesting day in terms of weeding through to find out if there's a there. Because we sign artists because we believe there's a long-term career. And there are a lot of instances where something connects for whatever reason, but they just, you go to listen to the next 5 or 6 songs they might have, and there's nothing there, right? I will tell you that Robin Ottolini is one of the artists we've signed because, like all of my competitors, she was getting real traction on TikTok, and everybody wanted to talk to Robin. And we just prevailed for whatever variety of reasons that our label did. But I believe she is the only artist on our roster that we signed because of that. And at the same time, there were about 5 that we didn't sign, that there were feeding frenzies going on about in the market. Time will tell whether we were right or wrong about those others, So we tread carefully in the world of A&R in terms of what that app is telling us. That's pretty straightforward right there, kids.
Yeah, I'd say so. So I think we're going to have to start to wrap things up here in respect of everybody's day. But so, Espo, you've just had such an amazing journey, and you've always been so gracious to speak with our students here at Monmouth University. You mentioned the other universities and students that you've spoken with, and just folks in general, young folks and of all ages who want to forge a career in the business. So just maybe as closing here, anything we haven't mentioned, what advice philosophically or tactically, do you have for anybody, artistically or on the business side, that that wants to break in?
I'll do my best to come up with a response to that. If you want to work in the music business and you think you want to work at a record label, this pandemic shutdown has not prevented us from hiring people, though it is, it has slowed it down. But you just want to get your foot in the door no matter what the gig is, and out hustle everybody. Sorry for the redundancy on that point, but we have so many people who started as our receptionists who are now in managerial level jobs. I've enjoyed watching that. I don't know how many students are on here, but when we can get back to the day of interns, we have probably 20 people on our team who were hired as the result of having interned and made amazing impression on us. If you're an aspiring artist, you heard my stat there, about 2,500 people want to sign to this record label, and I'm sure that they're fighting for the other records in any given year. And very few get to the point where they end up getting to sit in front of the guy who has the pen and can make the decision, because my A&R team is so damn good. But the ones who do come in with a point of view, they already know who they are. They are so confident. They make a room, even on Zoom, feel like, oh, people are going to pay attention to them. You talk about Devin Dawson, that guy walks in a room. You could be sitting in a restaurant, watch him walk in and go, I don't know who he is, but he's somebody, right? You just have to exude that. And, you know, you can't fake it.
Yep.
You can't have a plan B.
There's no room for insecurities in Espo's world.
No room for insecurities. So, you know, that would be my advice in those two. And, you know, I probably patted myself on the back way too much during the course of this thing. But I think most people would accuse me of being a nice guy and straightforward, right? And there's nothing wrong with being a nice guy and being straightforward. As Leor Cohen says, the truth doesn't hurt. It just stings for a little while.
You can out hustle everybody and still be a good guy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like my brother Danny, who raised me and my sister when we were orphans at a very young age. You've always treated people like they're wearing a shirt that says, make me feel good.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. I know we could go on, but I think we've got to wrap things up. Tom, I gave you some links. I don't know if you want to drop them in now while everybody's still alive, or however you want to get those out. We did have a lot of fun with the band The Vows, and we're still going to continue to have fun with the band The Vows. We had a lot of great shows, packed the room, created an industry mixer for many years, and we're going to continue to do that. We've never taken a dime. We've raised tens of thousands of dollars to have children have operations all over the world. So check out The Vows and look for our I don't know, next reunion show when the world gets back to a more normal place.
And I was looking for the link. So on February 2nd, groundhog.org, one word, groundhog.org.
Nice. So you're going to be the one responsible or involved in predicting whether or not we have an early spring or not.
Yeah, you know, didn't 2020 feel like Groundhog Day, kids?
All over again. Might as well, right?
Tom, here's to the Steelers. Thanks for letting me come on, folks. Thanks for staying on. Appreciate you. Maybe someday we'll come join you again.
Thank you, everyone. Espo, thank you so much, my brother.
Right on.
Really appreciate it. Tom, thanks for what a remarkable series.
Thank you guys for delivering the goods. I knew you would. So excited. The audience has been patting me on the back all day, the way John pats his A&R team on the back. Espo, you're an inspiring leader, and the success that your label enjoys is no accident. You lead both from the front and behind. And so thank you, Joe. You know how I feel about you, my brother. Everyone stay safe and healthy, wear a mask, and be nice to each other. And we'll see you out there soon. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Ciao.